Why not?
The following is the agenda for the municipal budget workshop meeting of the mayor and council, Borough of Compton Lakes, Passaic County, to be held in the municipal building, 25 Lennox Avenue, on Wednesday, March 13, 2024, beginning at 6:30.
Who stand for flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In conformance with the Open Public Meeting Law, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this meeting setting forth the time, date, place, and purpose of this regular meeting through notice posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, mailed to all, have requested and paid for same, and published in the Suburban Trends. Roll call, please.
Mayor, sir.
Here.
Council President Dewan.
Here.
Councilman Cruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Clement. Here. Councilwoman Kilgore. Here. Councilwoman Polidori. Here. Councilman Bennett.
Here.
With us this evening is our Borough Administrator Michael Pirelli and our Borough Auditor Bruce Cerulli.
Okay. Can I have a motion to open the meeting for public comments?
So moved.
Councilwoman Polidori, Council President Deline, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone from the public like to address? Seeing no one, motion to close the public section.
So moved.
Council President Deline,
Second.
Councilwoman Kent, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, so we're going to talk about the 2024 budget. Before I give it all off to Michael, I just want to thank Michael, Jimmy, and the auditors, Natasha, the committee that got together. They spent a lot of time and effort putting this together. It wasn't an easy budget, and they did work some magic to get it to the numbers that we felt were appropriate. The first numbers we had were a little high, I'm not going to lie, they were high. So I thank everybody for doing what they have to do, and now I'll hand it off to you, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So tonight, we're going to be talking about the 2024 budget and finance presentation. As the mayor had indicated, the finance committee, which is comprised of Mayor Sarah, Councilwoman Polidori, Councilman Bennon, and Councilwoman Kent, and our CFO Natasha Turchin, have met a few times to discuss our budget and kind of shape it in the way that it is here today. We are hoping to introduce the budget at the March 27th council meeting, but of course, if there's any questions or concerns, we'll certainly address those in a timely fashion. So to start, I would like to highlight some of the department heads that had a major role in our budget this year. So we have our Borough Clerk Liz Bransness, our CFO Natasha Turchin, our DPW Superintendent Daniel O'Rourke, our Tax Collector Jean Lafourier, our Chief of Police Derek Clark, Borough Engineer Tom Barati, Sal Poli, our Construction Official, of course our Borough Auditor James Cerullo, who is here tonight, Terry Malone, our Court Administrator, Jason Eckers, our Fire Chief, Al Evangelista, OEM Coordinator, Kathy Trost, Deputy Clerk, Karen Murphy, Rec Director, and Michael Drazik, our Library Director. And my apologies if I skipped anyone, it wasn't intentional. So we're going to start off by talking about last year's budget, where we were in 2023. I know some council members...
First of all, let's have hands. We got the screens working right, everything.
Did you have something?
No, I'm just saying, it's
I'm
all
sorry.
good, it's working?
Yeah.
Oh, nice, okay.
Sorry. So, some of our council members were not here last year, so I thought it might be important to talk about where we were last year with the budget. So we're going to go through our tax analysis, some historical data, some major accomplishments that we achieved, and then, what's coming up with the new budget. So last year's tax bill, the tax rate was 3.835 last year, and of course that consists of the county taxes, the local school tax, and the municipal tax, and the library tax. And of course, in addition to that, the local open space tax, in which we have a local open space trust fund. So that goes into play with your tax bill. Last year's tax bill, on average, was about $10,700 for the average residence. So that's kind of where we were at last year. As you can see, the school comprised of 57% of last year's tax bill, which makes up, most of it. Municipal was at 23%, county was at 19%, and of course our library was at the statutory of 1%, and open space less than 1%. This is a comparison with our neighbors. So as you can see, Pompton Lakes was around $10,700, total tax. You can see here Riverdale and Wanacue are a little bit less than us, but have a little bit less of a population, less of redevelopment and stuff like that. And you could see here Ringwood was higher than Pompton Lakes. So we were kind of around the middle of the pack with all of our surrounding municipalities. So the average municipal tax bill last year was $2,400, and we're just going to go through a breakdown of what goes into that. So you have your municipal budget, which is comprised of a variety of things from garbage collection, recycling, police, fire department, first aid, public works, salary and wages, recreation, parks, snow plowing, you name it. It was a $2,475 average municipal tax bill. Last year's capital plan was $1.255 million. That was a 2023 annual debt payment in the municipal budget of $189. So that's 7.66% of last year's budget. And then of course we have the Open Space Trust Fund. And in last year's budget, that was $28 on the average municipal tax bill. And that captures all of our local open space projects that we achieve throughout the year, which only benefits our parks, our sports fields, and all of our local waterways. How are taxes calculated? So the municipal tax levy is made up of state aid, revenue, grants, and surplus. And also the net valuation is the annual assessed value of the borough. It's important to know what goes into the operating budget every year. So last year's budget, state aid was made up of 5.5% of last year's operating budget. We have revenue and grants, which was 28.42% last year. We have surplus, which is our fund balance, which was about 10% of last year's operating budget. And then everything else is the tax levy, which is, the amount that taxes go up. So that was 55% of last year's operating budget. For those of you that don't know, the tax rate is calculated by the municipal tax levy divided by the net valuation taxable times 100. So last year's tax rate, only on the municipal portion, was 0.887 on the total tax rate of 3.885 from last year.
Guys, if anybody has a question, you can just stop them and ask the question.
Yeah, please interrupt me if anyone has a question. I wanted to highlight some of our major accomplishments from last year, just before we go into this year's current budget. So last year we started the Lincoln Ave Phase 2 Improvements Project, which was funded by a $440,000 local Department of Transportation grant. We are anticipated to start paving later this spring, which is all the way from Lakeside Ave down to Mathis Ave and Riverdale Road. So it's a very long stretch of roadway, and we're looking forward to doing that this spring. You'll see on tonight's council meeting agenda that we have a drainage improvements proposal from an engineer, which will aid in the ponding issue that is at the intersections of Ramapo and Lenox on Lincoln Ave. So that will go into play here. We upgraded the Carlo Field press box from $50,000 from our Open Space Trust Fund. So that project has been successfully completed. We acquired what's called the Heimel parcel, which is going to be used for open space purposes, which is along Hamburg Turnpike and Pompton Lakes. The Meridia redevelopment project has begun. So, residents are going to see that throughout the summer, and we're looking forward to the completion of that. That will only benefit our budget in future years. We ratified our local PBA agreement, which is a new 4-year contract. So our police are all set for the next 4 years. And of course, that is a major factor, which we'll get into later in the presentation, but that's another major accomplishment. You may have seen the congressman visited Pompton Lakes a few weeks ago. We accepted a $240,000 grant to fund new air packs for the Pompton Lakes Fire Department. And of course, we purchased our new ladder truck of $1.4 million, which was funded through capital in prior year budgets and was received last year. Next, I wanted to highlight some future considerations and what may be coming up this year. So our clerical, DPW, and crossing guard union labor agreements are due and expired. So that will be a major factor into our salary and wages budget, especially next year. So that's a future consideration. We're going to be looking to pave Watervliet and Albany Ave. We have a $182,000 DOT grant to fund that project. Hopefully we'll be going out for engineering soon. The Midland Ave improvement.
Can I just ask you, on that project, I know it's off topic a little bit, did we discuss yet about curbing and apron?
Excuse me. We'll visit that at a future council meeting when we have the engineering proposal.
Okay.
Excuse me. Tickle my throat. We have future plans at Willow Field, which we'll be talking about, in the next few months. We're awaiting a proposal from our engineer to assess, the feasibility of the project at this time. We're going to have to do some Ramapo River bank stabilization repairs, which is going to be coming up. We are reaching out to our state representatives for some assistance with local funding and trying to get a grant for that project. That project could be a significant price tag on our residents, and we want to do everything we can to get grant money for.
We're also going to talk to the county and see if they can help.
Yep. Of course, we have our annual river projects. We're going to have some IT network and computer upgrades, which we have to do this year. We have DPW and police fleet replacements. The first aid squad and emergency management team has requested a new storage shed at our first aid squad, so we'll have to discuss that coming up. Our Department of Public Works garage remains in poor condition, to say the least, so we'll have to discuss that in the future and what we want to do with that moving forward. For open space, we have Hirschfield Park Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 is underway with construction hopefully somewhere in the late summer, early fall. We have our architect designing the structure right now. That's for the storage shed in Hirschfield Park. And then right now, we're going to be focusing on the Phase 2 improvements project, which will consist of the playground replacements in the park and additional ADA accessible play pieces for our youth in town.
I just have a quick question on Hirschfield. Now, given the recent weather with all the rain, has anything changed that, or do you foresee any dollar amount changing if any additional damage was done to any of the property or any of the surrounding area at Hirschfield?
Not necessarily. The storage structure that's being replaced has to be flood-proofed, in accordance with our DEP regulations. So everything will be flood-proofed by law. The playground, of course, will have, flood aspects to it, and we'll have to, consider some aspects of that project. And then, of course, Phase 3 would be the trail system that's at Hirschfield Park. We'd have to look at some sort of permeable, asphalt solution to take in more water.
Okay.
So nothing major has changed yet, but certainly could.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, of course, we have some other local space initiatives, which may include the either replacement or rehabilitation of our gazebo. We have some guardrail replacements that we have to consider, bulkhead repairs, and of course, perhaps a dock expansion, all which are being discussed at our local open space committee. Okay, so getting into the 2024 budget, some of our goals for this year are to keep Pompton Lakes affordable, keeping our residents well-informed through increased communication, keeping Pompton Lakes safe through investing in our infrastructure and upgrading our open space and borough parks, amongst others. So now we're going to get into the municipal budget. This chart highlights the 2024 assessed value of Pompton Lakes. As you can see, it breaks down the types of properties that we have. So we have 62 vacant properties, over 3,600 residential properties, and 156 commercial properties, of which 242 are exempt. So the average net valuation is about $306,000. As you can see, and you'll see in future slides, that has gone down about $3 million. It's hard to say what that's from. It could be from a variety of things, such as, redevelopment projects ongoing. There was some tax appeals that occurred last year, especially with our shopping center where Planet Fitness is housed. So a lot of things go into that, but that does affect our budget, which we'll get into in the next few slides.
So just so everybody's aware that, Michael just mentioned, they did file a tax appeal at the mall there, and they won, and they had their taxes reduced, so that's part of where that number came from.
And I will just say, future redevelopment projects will help aid in future budgets to kind of offset this reduction in the net valuation.
Michael, the tax exempt, is that for the people that don't pay taxes, the residents that don't pay? Who's exempt?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I defer to the auditor on that, but I believe that.
You have religious properties, the school, that
Okay.
property in town is
Okay.
all tax exempt.
Okay.
You may have granted some veterans exemptions for permanent.
That's a state law now, right? That's a state law, isn't it, with the vets? Yeah.
100% disabled vets.
Yeah, 100%
Just
disabled.
to go on, like Michael said, expound on it, your redevelopment projects, those projects, the structure used to be taxable, and now with the redevelopment, only the land is gonna be taxable, and you'll be collecting the payment in lieu of taxes on the building, really through the rental process, whatever you're doing. So your net value taxable may decrease just because the structure is being removed from the tax rolls.
Because, so as soon as another structure is built on the property, then we'll be getting the pilot.
Yes, you'll be
Yes,
getting a
okay.
pilot, but there won't be taxes, real estate taxes as an improvement.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have a chart here which reflects the breakdown of that spreadsheet that was in the prior slide. As you can see, most of our properties in town are residential. I guess it's noteworthy to say that, we don't have a lot of commercial properties, which could aid us in this whole thing. So, that's certainly one con of the assessed value that we have to look at, when doing the budget.
Michael, where does the DuPont property go now? Do you know?
I don't know.
It's commercial, right?
I believe it might be commercial. Yeah.
It used to be manufacturing, right?
Well, that was changed, yeah, they changed the zoning on that a while ago. It's recreation, I think, is that what it was?
Well, some of it.
No, I mean, all of that is, the zoning doesn't relate to the property class. So it don't get, those are two different things.
And it's something just to keep in mind that you're bringing up DuPont. That's another conversation we're gonna have to have very shortly about.
Thank you. So some of our budget challenges for this year, certainly, may include revenue. So as you can see, there's an increase of about $40,000 in revenue from last year, which goes into our tax rate. We did have a one-time revenue last year for the American Rescue Plan money that we got from the federal government, which was in the amount of $387,000. It's noteworthy to mention that going into this year, when we're doing the budget, we're already down $387,000 just going into the budget right off the bat. So I have to come up with $387,000 because that was used as a one-time revenue last year. So that is a major, major factor that goes into the, as we get into the final slides here of what the breakdown is for this year.
So for the new council members, the American Rescue Plan is the COVID money we got from the federal government. Part of that law is you are allowed to offset your taxes with it over, I think it's a 3-year period. So we were down to the last part of using the money for that. So that's what he's talking about is we used it in the last 2 years to offset taxes. Moving forward, we cannot, and it's gone now. So that's where he's saying we have to make up $287,000.
And in addition to that, I believe, and Jim can correct me, I think there's $187,000 left in the COVID money, which was anticipated revenue this year.
Yeah.
So, we do have some, but unfortunately, this is the last year that we can use it. So, this year and next year, we're going to be in the negative in terms of revenue. So we have to come up with that and find ways to plan for that in the future.
Yeah, part of the money was used for helping with the taxes. Part of it was used for capital. I believe last year the administrator in the budget used it to offset some of your capital expenditures that you had in the budget last year.
So some 2023 notable revenue results. As you can see, we're down in municipal court fines. That's mostly due to, some laws and regulations that are in place as a result of COVID. I don't think that the court can use the mechanisms that they used to collect fines. I have been hearing, rumblings about that might change in the near future. But as you can see, we're down in municipal court fines. And also we're down in our construction code enforcement collections, 98,000.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But on the other side, our interest on investments are up 77,000. Our parking meters are up 38,000. And I will note with that, we do have our new parking kiosks, which we received last year.
They've gone fine.
They're on hand. So I did meet with the vendor a few weeks ago, and we're going to kind of come up with how we want to roll them out to the public. I do foresee an increase in the parking meter revenue for next year, which could be a good thing.
So for the municipal court, because we spoke with her, the new laws passed now. When you got fined with a ticket or something, you had, most of the times in past years, you had to pay it all up front. Now you can put $1 down or $5 down and do a payment plan for 20 years, making a $5 payment. So that's where we lost a lot of the revenue in the courts, was that, because of that.
Why is construction down so much?
They didn't hit the number, I think, yet on this property, right?
So the way that the anticipated revenue works is, in the budget, you anticipate what you're going to collect in the budget, and then in the current year. And then if you don't hit that number in the following year, you're going to be down. So that's where it's very important for the anticipated revenues that we correctly forecast where we think we're going to be for the year. That way, in the following year, we're not going to be down on our revenue, if that is the case. So, it could be a mix, and I defer to Jim on this. Maybe we anticipated too much. Maybe we thought we were going to collect too much, and we didn't. It could be that just construction happens to be down. I defer to Jim.
I'll say again, I wasn't involved in the revenue process of your budget last year. Your previous administration was. And you're allowed by law to anticipate up to whatever you realized in cash in the previous year. And I guess in the budget process, a little aggressive. I know you collect the permit money up front for the Meridian project. That wasn't, going to be reoccurring, so it probably was a little too aggressive in last year's, budget when it was anticipated. So going forward, you just have to keep an eye on what's going on, what the future development is. You can always have people doing, renovations to the property normally. But, your biggest input the previous years was for the, over on, the Colfax Avenue with that building. with
Lakeside
that parking
Commons,
lot up, and then with the beginning of this phase, the borough collected a lot of the fees up front.
And I don't
In
think,
what year was that? So you're saying Meridian wasn't collected in 2022, was it?
no, that's what I was about to say. They didn't collect meridians yet. So this year, now we're in, well, just what you're talking about, we'll have a high number because of the one-time collection. And anticipating for next year, we have to keep
So
that in
you
mind.
just have to watch out, you're better off keeping it at a level, and again, it goes back to surplus. So you'll be able to utilize that in future years, so you try not to maximize what you're anticipating, because you always want to be able to replenish your surplus with those excesses from those one-time deals, because otherwise you anticipate, we're gonna get 250,000 this year because we're getting this one-time influx, well, then you don't have it the next year, so you're better off letting that money go back to surplus, and then once it's realized, utilizing it at that point in time, once you have it in hand.
So the Meridia permits, that's for the building that's up? We have the building up, we didn't collect the permit money yet?
So with the Meridia project, what the CFO and I did was, we did receive a permit payment of about $275,000. We do anticipate, more money coming in. We did anticipate some of that revenue in this year's budget to offset and lower our tax rate. And some other one-time revenues that we also anticipated were the sale of our old ladder truck, which we anticipated $90,000 for, and we also anticipated some of our surplus vehicles that we sold last year as well, to use it as a mechanism to lower our tax rate a little bit. And I just wanted to add with the pilot payments, we discussed this with the finance committee, but the pilot payments were always handled in-house. We did retain a specialized accountant to administer our pilot bills moving forward. The pilot bills are a very complex and complicated calculation that must be done. So I am, positive about this new vendor that we got in, that will be collecting all of our pilot money in a timely fashion. That way, it will accurately reflect in our budget and we can plan for it moving forward.
Are they all current and up to date now?
Yes. Some other budget challenges are our state aid, which happens to be up $10,000 from last year. So that is a major player in our current budget. And then, of course, our surplus, which is our fund balance. As you can see, we didn't regenerate as much fund balance as we have in the past. We are down $37,000, which again is a major factor into this year's budget. We could have anticipated more surplus, but of course, we always advise against that. It's best to have a healthy surplus. And then here we have a 10-year fund balance history. As you can see, we've always regenerated our surplus in a healthy manner. This year, it just happens to be down. And of course, that's a 2023 unaudited balance. So now we're going to get into our operating budgets a little bit. Some of the factors that go into that are, of course, our salary and wages, our public safety, our public works, maintaining our roadways, construction, first aid, recreation, garbage and recycling, and our open space projects. We're going to go through our salary and wage appropriations. So for general services, which includes our borough administrator, mayor and council, municipal clerk, and our elections, are down $19,000 due to the resignation of the prior borough administrator, which was a higher salary, so that line is down. Finance is up by $2,000 due to some reallocation of extra salary money. Our land use departments, which incorporate redevelopment, open space planning, Board of Adjustment, and our code enforcement offices, are up by $26,000 due to the fact that we must retain an executive director as an employee of the borough. Moving forward, that's something that will come up in the future. We did have to allocate extra money in our salary and wage budget to, incorporate that into this year's budget. Our public safety salaries are up by $222,000. That's due to our new PBA labor agreement, which are 3% raises over the next 4 years, which was approved at the prior council meeting. So again, that's a contractual obligation that we have to abide by in our budget. Our public works salaries are up $79,000. Recreation is down due to some excess funding that was put in the budget last year, so we did reduce that to make it accurately reflect where we're at with the current salaries of our director, assistant director, and all of our rec aides. And then the library, of course, has a statutory obligation that we must abide by for all of their salary and wages.
Michael, can you explain how we went from $25,000 each for the planning board and board of adjustment to budgeting for 0 in 2024?
Yes, that's due to kind of rearranging our budget structure a little bit. The planning and zoning secretary was formally funded out of those respective budget accounts,
Okay.
but for some reason last year was put into the general code enforcement salary and wage budget. So we decided to leave it in there. So that's why you see a shifting of salaries. in
And
that
that's why
line.
we have an increase in the code enforcement as a
Yeah.
result? Okay, thank you.
The next chart highlights just where we're at with our salary and wages. Of course, our public safety makes up 60% of all of the borough's salary and wages, which is a little over $3.8 million. Public Works, 1.3, General Services, $500,000. It just highlights that public safety really does take up most of our budget in terms of salaries. Next, we're going to go through our operating budgets. The general services accounts, which primarily fund some miscellaneous projects, our contracts, all of our software maintenance licensing, computer upgrades, all of that kind of stuff is up by $65,000. That's due to the rollout of a new time management system that we're going to be implementing in the borough. So all of our employees will have a time clock mechanism, time sheets, we'll have control over their time off balances and what their accrued time balances are. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, there's, some increased funding there for some other contractual obligations, such as software renewals. Our finance operating budget is down by $13,000. There was a little bit of extra money in that account that we put elsewhere at this time. And our land use accounts are down $13,000, again, due to the reallocation of some excess funding from last year to focus on some other accounts at this time. Our public safety operating budget is up by $56,000. That is due to a variety of things, which incorporates contracts, software that the police department maintains, all of our police department equipment, dispatcher equipment, our Class 3 and Class 2 officer equipment, our uniform fire safety code, and our fire department operating budgets.
So the police department, they have contractual agreements with all the software they use. They went up a lot this year. And also, don't forget, that includes the special threes that we have in the school that we put up the money for up front, for uniforms and all that. That's a one-time charge, but we did put all that money up for all of that.
Yeah.
Just quickly, just explain to me, are we a member of any collaborative or consortium that police departments trying to get better rates on software, better rates on services, things of that nature? I mean, is this across the board that we're seeing these increases with software in particular, just because Mayor Sarah mentioned it?
Yeah, we try to utilize as much cooperative purchasing processes as we can. Unfortunately, most of the increase in this public safety operating budget is due to the Class 3 officers, equipment and stuff of that nature, training, education, and stuff like that, that's mandatory moving forward.
So is that a one-time, or is that a kind of a every 3 year, every 2 year type training that we need to keep that?
From my understanding, it's not every year. I would have to defer back to the police
No,
chief on
I
that.
think when we talked about it, we knew up front for the one time it was going to be a larger cost because of all the things we had to buy, the guns, the vests, all that.
Right.
And then the training was minimal. It was a couple $1,000.
Okay.
But I think most of that expense is in the equipment that we had to buy them.
Yeah, and it's just a one-time. That's what I just wanted to know if anything was repetitive
Of
over
course.
the next, as far as training is concerned anyway.
Also noteworthy is our prosecutor position. The prosecutor was previously a borough employee, which is actually not a direct violation of the law, but it's really best practice to have them as a professional service contract. So we did have to increase the court budget by about $17,000 to fund that prosecutor moving forward, which we did retain at the beginning of the year. So again, that's another increase here that is being shifted from the salary budget in terms of public safety. Our public works operating budget is up $76,000. That's due to our contractual obligations with our solid waste removal, which, as you can see, is up about $50,000 for this year, which is one of the significant players for this year's budget. And of course, some miscellaneous items such as our new street sign replacement program, our recycling tipping fee, and some other, maintenance and buildings and grounds upgrades that we would like to do this year. Our recreation department is down $11,000. That's due to the existence of some trust funds that we have, which are essentially rolling accounts that we can use throughout the year. Those balances do have a healthy, those accounts do have a healthy balance at this time. So I did lower the account a little bit to, again, further lower our tax rate. And I don't foresee any programs or activities being interrupted as a result of this. We do have a healthy balance. Our library is a statutory obligation, so we're at $222,000 for this year. And all of our accounts that make up our boards and committees are up about $16,000. That's due to both the required hiring of an arborist for the tree ordinance.
The arborist is in this number, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our existing lake management contract, which treats our Pompton Lake during the summer, and a flood survey project that the Flood Commission submitted for. So those are three increases right there that make up all of our boards and committees. And of course, you could see both Public Works and Public Safety make up most of our operating budget. Some of our miscellaneous appropriations, which is legal, engineering, health benefits, state disability, search and rescue, our annual contribution to the first aid squad, our solid waste disposal contract, animal control, and our parks and playgrounds. Some noteworthy increases there are legal, which is up $25,000. Engineering is up $20,000 due to the rollout of some new projects that are coming up this year. Our health benefits is a contractual increase from the state of $283,000. And our special police account, which funds our salary and wages for our Class 2 and Class 3 officers, is up $16,000. There are some, minor decreases in here, but these are some of our major players in this year's budget.
Can I just ask one thing here? On the senior citizens programs, we reduced that by 8,000? That seems like a big number.
That is because last year, what we budgeted for, we did not spend
Oh, really?
at
Okay.
all. So again, when we're talking about, the taxes where we are now, we needed to cut some things.
Okay.
The celebration of public events is up $5,000. The fire department requested funding to hold an anniversary celebration for a fireman that was deceased many years ago. Excuse me. And our pension obligations are up about $92,000, which is a statutory obligation that, we don't have much say about. And again, some of our key drivers here, again, legal is up, our health benefits are up, solid waste, fuel and utilities, our pensions, and our police department salary and wages, and our operating budget accounts. These 8 budget line items are driving most of the appropriation increases. 6 of the 8 are contractual. So as you can see, most of what's here, what is our biggest budget increase is all contractual something that we really can't do much about. And again, here's a breakdown of where we're at with all of our, budget accounts. So in conclusion, where we're at right now with the municipal budget, it definitely is a tough year. We did have to cut some things, but again, we have contractual and statutory obligations that we must abide by. So the proposed tax rate is 0.920 tax rate, which would be a $90.88 increase on the municipal tax bill. So again, you have the schools and the county which still have to come into play. So this is only the municipal portion. We try to do our best to keep taxes as low as we can every single year. But again, this is where we're at this year, and it's due to a variety of things such as the revenue, anticipation, and where we're at with all of our contracts, pensions, and health benefits.
And it's also worth mentioning, we didn't cut any services for anything we've done in the town up to this point. I'm talking to some other mayors, they are cutting some services right now because they're in the same boat as us with the same increases. So, trying to keep all our services and at the same time be responsible to the budget is very important. To me, it's the most important thing that we do as a mayor and council up here is the taxes and the number. And we all know taxes are high in this area, not just in Pompton Lakes, in North Jersey. So, we're trying to be responsible at $90. That's what we're trying to do there.
Mayor,
Sure.
you said other mayors in the area are looking at cutting services. What services are they looking at?
We didn't talk about what services, but, they're in the same boat. Pension, retirement, all these things, healthcare went up, and they're either going to have to cut services or raise taxes more than
So that would
they
be
want to.
layoffs?
I don't know if it's layoffs, it could be programs, it could be anything, reduced recreation programs. So it could be numerous things.
This is a 6-year tax history of Pompton Lakes. So as you can see, the average municipal tax bill would be about $2,500 of a tax change of, again, 90.88 cents. Last year, we were at about a $41 municipal tax increase, $23 and $24 prior years. So again, we're in a tough year right now.
And let's not forget that we also had the COVID money in those last couple of years.
Of course, yes. This is just a chart that reflects that previous spreadsheet. And then I always like to throw this in at the end, just so the public understands that as is right now with the 2024 budget, the school would make up 56% of your tax bill. The county would make up 18% of your tax bill, and that's on a projected 2% increase for the county. The borough would make up 23% of your tax bill, libraries at about 1%, and our open space is 0.25%. Again, that's what makes up your whole tax bill. We're only just a portion of that.
And this is 2024 budget, not anticipating what the school budget is going to be adopted at and what their increases are, and potentially the county as well. So those percentages could shift as well, right?
Absolutely. This is a projected 2% increase.
Just based on our
Yeah.
projection.
But when you say, going back, you said 2% just on us, not on the county.
No,
We don't
this
know what
is,
their budget's going to be.
Right, but you didn't anticipate an increase in it.
Projecting 2% here on the
we're,
municipal.
yeah, we're projecting 2% for the county and
Oh,
the
you are?
school.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the borough percent is obviously
Right.
where we're at this time.
So that theoretically, if the school came back at 0, could be a less of a number.
Yeah. All right, so that's the municipal budget. We're gonna get into our capital plan for a few minutes.
Do you want to
Does
take questions? Yeah,
does
we'll take
anyone have
questions.
any
Anybody
questions on
have
the
questions,
budget?
concerns, comments?
No.
Nope.
I'll comment on the infographic, it's very useful, I appreciate that, we do a lot with the 25, and you guys record it, that's been to residents, so we do a lot of recording that we pull activity with that portion of that.
Of course, and we're gonna put this presentation on our website for the public to view.
Actually, to that point, can you make this into some kind of video slideshow, have it on channel 77 and our YouTube figuring that we're not gonna have audio, obviously, but at least the presentation. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is going to be recorded also?
It is, yes. Okay, so we have about 15
Well, do you
minutes.
want to let Jim say anything about, anything you want to add to this, about the budget itself?
No, I'm just here to support Michael and his plan again, more than, I used to go through my show just about over the state of finances and just, surplus in a lot of places has gone down. Fortunately, the interest on investments has been good this year, and really, last year's budget was a precursor to this, because it was tight last year. And again, I wasn't involved in, I'm not trying to throw stones, but in the revenue anticipation, I usually assisted the previous administration in using numbers. Last year, I wasn't involved in that, and I'd say some of the areas were a little bit more over aggressive, and, maybe you needed to get to where you did for, where you wanted to be tax levy wise. But if you look at Mike's tax chart there on what you've done, and percentage-wise, it really hasn't been that bad. It's just that, unfortunately, after you had the last reval, the tax appeals at the A&P, the property values have gone down. That's a driving number in that tax rate calculation, is the net value taxable, and it has gone down. But if you take that average over the previous 6 years, you're like an excellent, you've always tried to keep a tax point or two, no worse. And this is going to be the worst year, but, the things have changed in the economy, everything, that makes things harder to keep things status quo as it was. But, for the most part, you guys have always been doing things the right way and, still providing services like you say, Mayor.
And how's our bond rating?
Well, your bond rating, we had a rating call, because last time we had a bond sale was 2 years ago, and Standard & Poor's, who rated those bonds just to keep everything update. Michael, Natasha, and I had a rating call, and when we had the bond sale back in 2021, we were a AA positive. This year is a AA stable, and basically that's due to like things that you're doing in town to try to keep things positive. A lot of other municipalities have instituted things with like the redevelopment plans, et cetera. So they kept your rating at AA stable.
Good, that's good to hear.
No negative outlook.
Good, thanks. Okay, Mike, capital?
Just to go into our capital plan, we do, anticipate to introduce our capital ordinance at the next council meeting. I would just like to highlight some of the projects that the Finance Committee has included in our plan. So we have the Dawes Highway Improvements Project, which we already went out to bond for at the last council meeting due to time constraints with the DOT. So that's a net debt of $658,000. We have our annual funding for the river work and our stormwater and flood control management services. So those are annual amounts that we have always historically included in our capital plan. We do anticipate about $40,000 of IT and computer upgrades that still need to happen, both with our borough servers and computer and network replacements in the borough. We have the Lakeside Ave ADA curb ramp project, which is only a net debt of $35,000. That's due to $58,000 of community development block grant funding that we received. We are looking to move forward with that project. That will bring all of our curb ramps up to current standards on Lakeside Ave. So we're looking forward to that. The DPW submitted a variety of landscape and fleet enhancements. So in the plan, we're projecting 2 Ford F-250s for the DPW. We are projecting 2 snow plows for $36,000. A DPW landscape trailer, which would be a second trailer in addition to what we have. And with that would be a 96-inch lawnmower, a lawn tractor, which would be used to drag our sports fields, which could be extremely helpful during flooding circumstances, which we could have used this past winter. So we're looking forward to that. The DPW is looking to purchase a leaf vacuum, which can help clean up all of our stormwater basins, curb lines, and our parks. So we're looking forward to that. The police department has a requirement of purchasing 7 bulletproof vests, which is $12,000. And that's due to a discrepancy with some grant funding that we get yearly. Normally, our bulletproof vests are funded through grants, but I think there was a reporting mishap. So, we're under time constraints in terms of the bulletproof vest replacements. So, we have to move with that right now. And then next year, we'll get back with the grant program and fund it through grants. And to conclude, the DPW is also looking for a lawn tractor leaf attachment.
So for everybody up here, I'm sure everybody's aware, we had a meeting with all the sports groups about how we could help clean up the fields after the 3 storms we've had. And the DPW is doing a great job, and I'll talk about that more in our report. But at the end of the day, to aid us in those cleanups when they happen, some of this equipment that we're looking at now will help with that. So it's stuff that the DPW supervisor has suggested moving forward. These are things we can use to help clean fields and do things.
So in conclusion, the capital plan, we're looking at a net debt of 1.1 million for this year, which is, down compared to last year's capital plan at this time. So we are looking to move forward with that. On the next slide, I just wanted to highlight some future projects which may come up. So we have the Hirschfield Park Improvements Phase 2, which will need to be funded in part through capital. So that's on hold right now, but that is a future consideration. We have Albany and Watervliet Ave road resurfacing, which we would like to move forward this year, but we're not in the state to do so right now. But again, it's a future consideration. We have Midland Ave, White Way, and Park Place, which is also on our road resurfacing schedule. This project is going to be a 2024 municipal aid candidate, so we're putting that on hold right now, but that is also a future consideration. And then, of course, we have the Willow Field Improvements Project, which is ongoing at this time, but must be projected, in terms of perhaps moving forward in the near future. And then, unfortunately, with the capital plan, this is not to say that it's not anything we can move forward with later this year. We certainly could if there's a need for it, but we did have to defer some items due to some budget constraints. So, all of those items are highlighted here. And again, if any become a necessity, we can certainly address it at a later date. All in all, our capital requests were about 3.5 million. So, we kind of got it to a place where we could, deal with in terms of this year's budget.
And I want to thank Michael, because that number, every department has a wish list of what they want. It was a lot bigger than what we're looking at right here. And we were able to whittle that down to needed things right now. And that's a lot of work from the committee and also from Michael doing that. So any questions about the capital for Michael? No?
And this concludes the presentation. If anyone has any further questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Michael.
Michael,
Okay.
thank you for this presentation. It's probably the most clarifying that I've had since being on the council.
Yes, very good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me just close it down. Okay. Where are we? Privilege of the floor, any privilege of the floor? Nope. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Council President Blind, Councilman Cruz, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, we're gonna start the next meeting in 5 minutes.